How's it going, guys? Scott here again with Six Figure Dog Trainer. Today I wanted to make a video on why you should start a podcast. As a dog trainer, this is a great way for you to get your content out on social media. My wife and I do a podcast. It's called The Quirky Dog, and we also have the domain name thequirkydog.com, which will take you right to the podcast. And it's on iTunes and BeanPod and iHeartRadio and a bunch of other hosting sites. But here's the value of a podcast for a dog. It's good for any business, but for a dog trainer, you do 25 minutes a week. You do this podcast on different behavioral issues with dogs. You can interview people. You could work right out of your house like this. You could have just a room in the corner of your living room or something where you sit, videotape the podcast, and then you can take chunks of that video, put it up on Facebook, a 2-minute snippet. You can put something up on Instagram, but you can also transcribe the whole podcast. And then you can take that transcription, you can clean it up and make it look legible, put it on a blog. So now you got a blog post, and over time, as you start accumulating these podcasts, you'll have enough content for a book that, I'm not a writer, but we talk about, we have a lot of valuable information on these podcasts that we talk about. We, as dog trainers, we have a ton of knowledge in us. We don't always know how to get it out. And, but through a podcast, through these chunks, week after week after week, next thing you know, you could have 200-300 page book, imagine 6 months down the road, and you can print that up. You could do an ebook, you could self-publish, and now it just makes you look like more of an authority. And it's good content. It's not some BS baloney book designed to just, suck people into buying some crap they don't need. It's real valuable content. So go check out my podcast, The Quirky Dog, so you can kind of see what my wife and I are doing. I will see if we can get maybe a little video clip of that on the end of this thing, so you can see what we're doing on the end of this. And I'll put maybe even at least like a thumbnail of us doing it. Now, what we have done is we found a podcast studio. I didn't want to spend the money on the equipment because I didn't know what kind of equipment to buy. And I didn't want to buy a bunch of equipment and then have it all suck and I had to go buy it all again. So, and I didn't know what my commitment was going to be to the podcasting, So I just got online and I looked for a podcast studio, and a couple of them came up. I'm in the New England area. We found one. It was super easy. You just walk in, sit at the you'll see it. It's like almost like a newsroom type of a layout, But they produce it. They do the whole thing. They upload it to all the different podcast hosting sites. It's super easy. So keep in mind, the value in a podcast is, and here's another thing about a podcast that I forgot to mention. Eventually, you're going to start to accumulate a base of listeners. When you have a good base of listeners, now you can start advertising the time on the podcast. You can get other companies to sponsor your podcast. It could be another, a related company, obviously not another dog trainer, but like dog treat companies, people that make leashes, equipment, different things like that. If you had a lot of followers, you could get a company like Chewy's or one of these other bigger companies where they could be paying you, $200, $300, $500 a month to be on your podcast every week, where you take a break in the middle of your podcast and there's a commercial for maybe a minute and then you come right back in. It makes the whole podcast look more legitimate and you can actually start making money. Or you could be using products while you're in the podcast. You can just start promoting certain leashes, talk about a leash, and for that mention, maybe you get, $100, $200 a month to bring these things up. So there's a lot of different ways that you can take advantage of a podcast. In my mind, the first one is you're building content. You're building content every time you do a podcast. You have a specific topic. You share your knowledge about that. You can invite guests, things like that. From that information now you can make your Facebook ads or posts, Instagram. You can tweet about it. You can transcribe your podcast, put it on a blog post, and then again you can put this all into a book. There's a lot of different things you can do. So I hope it helps you. Please subscribe if this is helpful to you. This is the marketing side of selling dog training. And hit that notification bell, because I'm going to put a lot of videos up and I want them to have some value to you. Please comment if you thought this helped you a little bit, and if there's something you felt you could add to it, something I left out, put it in the comments and let me know. That's about it, guys. I'll talk to you later. Scott with Six Figure Dog Trainer. Peace.
Welcome to the Quirky Dog Podcast, inspired by some of the quirkiest dogs you can ever imagine and the owners who love them. This podcast is brought to you by the quirky couple themselves, Scott and Jess Williams. Their aim is to educate and entertain. Here's Scott and Jess.
Welcome to the Quirky Dog Podcast, guys. We're going to begin here by wishing you a happy National Dog Day. It just happens to be National Dog Day, and we're going to start with the quirky tip of the day.
Hey, before I get into the tip, I got to explain this pig. Jess and I were at the vet the other day, bringing one of our many dogs in, and they had a whole wall full of toys and all kinds of dog crap, and they had these pigs lined up on the wall. And I'm looking at this pig, and I'm like, what the hell is a pig doing in the vet? So I take it off the shelf and start messing with it, and I think this is the most inappropriate dog toy I could think of.